session will work, where will be your SI, where will be your SSP, where will be your parameter server, and other components. Okay, so let's start that. Okay, so I hope you people are able to see my screen, and this is my whiteboard. So again, I have to draw some diagram for to make this thing um, conceptually clear to you people. Okay, so one thing, and this is my firewall. This is okay, and okay. So again, this is DMZ. This is core network. Okay, and okay. This is SI. This is, I have to make it big because I'm going to draw a couple of more diagrams on this. This is SSP. This is my load balancer, and here is my external network, external partner. Okay. Okay. I will draw one more thing here, and this is my parameter server. Okay. Now, first I'm going to explain you how communication session will flow from external partner to your SI, and then I will go in detail. Okay, so and I hope I have already explained core network DMZ in the previous session, so I don't need to explain it again, right? So now, say suppose I have a client, external client, okay, that want to transfer a file to our organization. Okay, say suppose the payment file, okay, to our organization through FTP protocol. Means this guy want to connect to our SI system, okay, want to connect to our SI system and drop a FTP file, drop a file through FTP protocol. Okay, so this is my external partner. This is my load balancer. This is SSP engine, and obviously we will have sorry, we will have okay, let me write it down first. This is parameter server, and this is SI. Okay, Sterling integrator, or you can say SFG, doesn't matter. Okay, and okay, I will explain it. And I have my SSPCM somewhere here. Okay, And I hope you have watched my previous session video where I have explained what is configuration manager. Okay, so this is SSPCM. Okay, now let's understand what will happen when this guy, your external partner, initiate a FTP session. Okay, so from the high level, first we'll understand and then we'll go in details from top to bottom approach we are going to follow. Okay, so we'll go into detail and we'll see how these things will be handled by your FTP adapter and what all components will be involved to for the authentication and the validation of this uh, communication session. But for now, let's look at from the from high level. Okay, so this client initiate an FTP connection from, say, suppose different country. Okay, so your connection will be initiated and it will uh, hit the your organization's load balancer through internet. So this is internet. Internet means very unsecure channel. Okay, so through the internet your partner has connected to our uh, load balancer. Okay, again I will say there your organization may have one more firewall over here. Okay, like this is my firewall, right? Firewall. So this is my firewall, and you can have one more firewall here, right? But just for simplicity I'm assuming there is no firewall. Okay, once your load balancer receives this communication session, it will transfer this or it will pass this communication session to your SSP. Okay, got it? It will pass to your SSP. SSP, and I hope you have also watched my previous session where I have explained what is the main functionality of SSP, right? So SSP basically do the session breaking to provide high level of security. Okay, so your SSP engine will have an FTP server adapter defined. Okay, that has open a port 21 for FTP sessions. Okay, so now let's draw FTP adapter. Okay, so now say suppose inside my SSP I have an FTP server adapter. So this is my FTP server adapter. Okay, and because this FTP server adapter is defined and it is defined in a such a way that it has open a port 21. Okay, on this box where SSP is installed. So this client has initiated a connection on port 21 on a specific IP address that because of that IP address your request has reached to load balancer. Now load balancer will see that this request is for 21 and it may have some sort of netting, so it will transfer this request to your SSP box where you have local IP address. After it will be done by your load balancing team, so maybe you don't need to worry too much about that. So eventually your request will come to SSP engine box. Okay, so here because you have defined an FTP server adapter, so there is a port open which is 21 and it's listening for the connections, right? So this way your request has now reached to FTP server adapter. Okay, now FTP server adapter will do the session break, right? How it will do the session break, what all other configurations are, required and will involve in this, we will see in a while. Okay, so after that session break, your FTP server adapter, this is the functionality of your SSP. Okay, it will initiate another connection. So this connection that has come from your external partner, we call it as inbound connection. Inbound connection. Okay, we called it as inbound connection. Okay, your FTP server adapter will initiate another connection, right? Remember, your external client has initiated a connection. Okay, now your FTP server adapter will initiate a connection. Okay, and this connection will be initiated for your SI, will be initiated for SI. Okay, so somewhere in SI adapter, right, we will configure the IP address of your SI box. Okay, now we have to understand what is the role of perimeter server. Okay, if you do not have perimeter server, you have to open a port. Now this is the time I have to draw the FTP server adapter in SI. So this is my FTP server adapter in SI. Okay, one second. This is my FTP adapter. This is my FTP server adapter that is defined in the SI. And now say suppose it is listening on port 24. It is configured to open a connection, listen on port number 24. Okay, now because this FTP server is defined in SI box, it will open port 24 on this SI box, and obviously this is associated with an IP address. Okay, if you do not have perimeter server, what will happen? You have to make a hole in your firewall. Okay, you have to open a port on your firewall 21, oh sorry, 24, right? So that this connection that your this guy SSP engine will initiate now, right? Pass through this firewall and reach to SI. Now the problem is we will have multiple adapters for the multiple communications, protocol communications. Okay, now say suppose your FTP is 24, your FTP is 80, your FTPS is 50, your AS2 is on 60, your connect direct is 6030. Like that, you can have multiple protocols, right, that your company support. So your network team have to open so many ports in the firewall, right, which itself make your core network vulnerable, right, which is not a good idea. We do not want to we don't want to open lot of lot of ports in our firewall, right? If you have lot of ports open in your firewall, then what is even use of your firewall, right? We don't want to do that. So to avoid this situation, we use perimeter server. Okay, so in the perimeter, what perimeter server do is it opens a tunnel. Okay, opens a tunnel that and this tunnel, okay, initiates or starts from more secure zone to less secure zone. Now installation of perimeter server, significance of installing perimeter server in more secure zone, less secure zone, and there are other few concepts that I will cover in different video in architecture video. Okay, you can watch that as well, but I cannot go more than this detail here in this session because my concentration, my focus or agenda is today to understand the FTP server adapter and the configuration of FTP server adapter in SSP engine. So we are not going in uh, detail for the uh, architecture configuration. Okay, so but on high level you can understand your SSP opens a tunnel on a specific port. Say suppose the port number is 6666. Okay, and it initiates a connection from your SI box. Okay, from your SI box to perimeter server box. Oh, sorry, SSP engine box. So you will have a tunnel like this created. Okay, my diagram is not good today. Something like that. Okay, tunnel is created like this. Got it? Beauty of this is perimeter server initiates connection from more secure zone to less secure zone. So obviously this will be considered as a secure connection. Okay, this perimeter server will be configured in your FTP adapter. Okay, so what will happen, your FTP adapter will initiate the connection, okay, for this guy, but it will initiate the connection through this tunnel. Okay, let me, this is very important point and you need to understand very 100% you need to understand this. Okay, so your SSP will initiate the connection, right, through this tunnel, right, on port 24. On port 24, you don't need to open it 24 port here, right? This connection will pass through this tunnel that has been established by your perimeter server. Okay, your perimeter server. Okay, and remember your perimeter server and SI is installed in the same box, right? And SSPCM is installed in the different box. I mean, I do not have much space, so I draw it like that. But you need to know that these two softwares are installed in the same box. Okay, so this tunnel will pass this firewall. Sorry, this connection will pass this firewall through this tunnel and it will reach in the box where SI is installed. Now, because connection was initiated for this IP address, which is say suppose 1.2.3.4, right? And the port number 24. And on this box, right? In this box, FTP server adapter is listening on port 24. So your connection now has reached to FTP server adapter, right? Your connection has now reached through the tunnel, through the perimeter server to SI, and in the SI it will go to FTP server adapter on port 24. So this is the one complete uh, session flow for SSP engine, FTP adapter, and SI and SI adapter and the perimeter server. If you remember yesterday's installation on the or last session's installation, we are not going to use perimeter server for now, right? Because it for now I just want to keep my focus on the SSP engine. So we do not have any perimeter server installed. So I will directly connecting from my SSP engine to SI on port 24 or whatever port I will define for the FTP server adapter. Okay, so this connection will be direct through my firewall. I have open firewall. I have open lot of ports in this firewall. So my connection will directly come there. But for your understanding, in production, in real scenario, this is how it works. Okay. So this is one thing. Now let's get our focus back here in the FTP adapter. But I hope you notice what I said, that your SSP do the session break. It gets one inbound session from your external client and then it initiates another session that we call the outbound session, and that session initiates from the SSP engine and it go to your SI installation, SI box, in the core network. This is the main concept of SSP. Now let's come to configuration. Okay, so here is my configuration. Okay, so we want to create an FTP server adapter in SSP engine, right? So obviously, you will do all the configuration or define all the configuration in SSPCM, and uh, then your SSPCM will connect to your SSP engine and push the configuration. As a result of that, SSP engine will instantiate or will start a FTP server adapter in the SSP engine box as per the configuration that has been pushed from the SSP CM. One thing. So let's consider this is your FTP server adapter. Okay, FTP server adapter, right? This is your FTP server adapter. Perfect. Got it? Good. Next, inside this F to define an FTP server adapter, we need one more component that we call netmap. Okay, we need one more component that we call netmap. So let's say suppose this is netmap. Netmap. Okay. Ahead. There you go. To define a netmap, okay, to define a netmap, we need policy. Okay, we need policy. Policy. Okay, we need policy. Okay, netmap has two components. Okay, the netmap has two components. One is called inbound node and other is called outbound node. Okay, one is called the inbound node and another is called the outbound node. Okay, so this actually these two are part of netmap. I think that is the best way to represent it. Okay, now let's see what it is. So FTP server adapter. So you know what is FTP server adapter, right? FTP server adapter basically open a port on a specific port, and this is the place where we configure port numbers and all other details that is required for an FTP server, right? So and if it's FTPS, this is where you will define the active port range, passive port range, SSL certificates, and all these things will be defined in FTP adapter here, right here. Okay. This, if you want to complete the configuration for FTP server adapter, you need to have an netmap. Okay, so somewhere you will be asked to provide a netmap. If you have already configured, you can select it from the drop down, but if you haven't configured it yet, then it will ask you to create one. Now what is a netmap? Okay, if any of you are familiar, right? Any of you are if are familiar with one second with any of if any of you are familiar with the Connect Direct, you will know what is the NetMap. Okay, so NetMap is a collection of nodes. Okay, NetMap is nothing but collection of node. Okay, so and each node is a collection. NetMap is a collection of nodes, and each node contains detail of one partner. Okay, each node contains detail of one communicating or one uh, transferring file transferring partner. So each node contains details of one file transferring partner. Now, what does it mean? Say suppose this NetMap has this one node. Okay, right? This node will have IP address of this guy or external partner. Now, say suppose IP address of this person is 1.5.6.7. So somewhere in the net in the NetMap, I will be saying host name equals to I 1.5.6.7, right? If it's a FTPS connection or some secure protocol, certificates of this guy will be configured on this node. Okay, and we call it as inbound node because this node represents an external client or inbound client or a client who initiates connection to SSP. So if somebody initiates connection to SSP, for SSP that is inbound connection, so it's inbound node. Now here is the important thing. SSP, you cannot in SSP you cannot connect to this FTP server adapter if your IP address is not configured in NetMap in a node. If you do not have a node configured in the NetMap, you cannot communicate to my FTP server adapter. This is the very important security policy. Okay, so you initiate a connection. Now say suppose we have two parties, this guy and I have one more external partner. Okay, IP address of this is configured in this inbound NetMap. Okay, IP address of this guy is not configured in my inbound NetMap, or I do not have any node that has details of this person, this external client. So this guy cannot connect to this FTP server adapter. Okay, so what happens? Your external partner initiates connection. It comes to load balancer. Load balancer forward this to SSP, and SSP forward this to your port number 21. Not actually forward it, but somehow it comes to this box. It and obviously here your FTP server adapter is listening on 21. So eventually your request will hit this adapter functionality. Okay, now request is with the FTP server adapter. Okay, now sorry, FTP server adapter validates if this IP address, okay, listen carefully, your FTP server adapter validates if this person or the owner of this IP address who has initiated this connection is allowed to communicate with me or with this FTP server adapter or not. And how you do that? Through the inbound node validation in the NetMap. So your FTP server adapter go in the net map and check if there is an inbound node defined with this IP address. If it finds one, then it says okay, you are allowed to connect. Okay, and if it's not, if it does not find, it immediately rejects that connection. Okay, so it is called the net map check. This is a very important feature in the SSP. So this is what it is. Got it? You now the question is, obviously a very obvious question will come in your mind. So if you have 1,000 FTP clients or SFTP client, do you need to configure one node for each client? So answer will be technically yes. But if you do not want to do it, you can avoid that. And how you avoid that? In the node, in the inbound node, you have option to configure IP addresses or the host name with the wildcard. So if you place asterisk in the host name, then it matches all IP addresses. So this single node will able to validate every single node, every single IP address. There is a way to configure host name so that your FTP adapter only validate first 8 bits of your IP address, or first 16 bits 16 bits of your IP address. If that matches, it will allow, it will consider a valid connection, and then it can leave the remaining 16 or 8 bytes. So you can basically wildcard your IP addresses or the host name. Okay. Next, now your connection has been validated by the inbound node, this particular inbound node in the net map. What next? After that, it uses the policy as well. I will go on that, but let's uh, understand this outbound node guy. Now, how your SSP or FTP adapter will know that where it need to send this connection, where it need to transfer this file, where it need to eventually send this connection. So your FTP server adapter come to know that by using the outbound node. In the outbound node, you specify the IP address of your SI and the port number of your FTP adapter that is defined in the SI, so that your SSP initiates a connection, okay, another connection, new connection, and send to SI. So now say suppose IP address of your SI is 1.2.3.4. So here you have to specify host name or the IP address as 1.2.3.4. And the port number is say suppose 24. So you will be specifying 24 over here. Right? So that your SSP initiate new connection to your SI box. Got it? So this is the story of NetMap, inbound node and the outbound node. Now let's conquer this guy as well, policy. So what is the policy? Policy is the configuration, okay, where you defined how your authentication, user authentication will happen, right? And I think I do not need to explain, when you connect to an FTP or SFTP server for the file transfer, you will be always asked to provide user ID and password, right? NetMap check is a one thing that you are actually allowed. I know that your IP is allowed, right? But do you have authentication and authorization as well? That need to be checked as well, right? So to check that, right, or how that authorization need to happen, we define that in the policy. Okay, we define that in the policy. Here is my policy. That's great, right? In the policy, we define the way our connections need to be authenticated. Do we need to Sterling external authentication server for authentication? Do we need to use uh, external authentication server for the certificate validation, right? And I mean, I do not know if you know or not. External authentication server is another piece of software that IBM provides, and external authentication server enable authentication of user ID and password through the LDAP or the Active Directory, right? So you do not need to create the user IDs and passwords in your SI boxes. It will directly get the user ID password from the LDAP or Active Directory, which is the part of your organization. Okay, but we will not use external authentication server. So after today, I'm not going to mention this name again. Okay, this is where you can do the user mapping. Okay, this is another. Okay, so you can also define the authentication from the local store, user local store. In SSP also you can create the user credentials, user IDs and passwords, right? And you can provide this user ID and password to your external clients to connect to your systems. Hmm. And this is where a very important thing that you define here, which is called the user mapping. Okay, say suppose in SI you have, I hope you know SI, right? In SI you have created a partner, or in SF you have created partner called the foo, right? And the password username is foo and password is foo, right? So you you give this user ID and password to external partner. Okay, external partner use this user ID password, foo user and the foo password, and initiate the connection now has come to your SI and I mean SSP, and after all the validation and all the stories, now it is on the stage where it needs to do the authentication. Now, how this user ID and password need to be authenticated? One way is that we call pass through. Pass through means whatever user ID password has been provided by the external client, same user ID password will be used or uh, for the connection that SSP initiate to SI. So SSP will send the same user ID password, which is my foo user as and foo password to SI, right? This is called the pass through. Another thing is mapping. Okay, so what happens in the mapping? In SI, we have user as foo, right? I just now explained you that in SSP also you can define the user ID and password. Now say suppose in SSP you define user ID and password as a bar, right? User as a bar and the password as a bar. Okay. You can give this user credential to your external client and ask him, okay, and ask him to use bar user and bar as a password to connect to your system. This guy will use bar as a user ID and password, and it will come. Your connection will flow from all the way LB load balancer, SSP, and to FTP server adapter. This time, at FTP server adapter finds user mapping is configured as uh, user mapping. Okay, that means now your FTP server adapter will validate user ID password against its own user store. Okay, because this bar user ID does not exist in the SI, right? And SI does not know, because SI does not know bar, right? It cannot authenticate, it cannot give access to your mailboxes or the specific directories, right? So SI will do the authentication of user ID and password against its local store. Okay, once that happens, you know what will happen? Your FTP server adapter will convert that bar user ID password to foo. Or you can understand the outbound communication session that will be established from SSP to SI, right? That will be established from SSP to SI will be established using the bar user ID and password, right? And I will show you that where we do this mapping. If foo comes, then it need to convert it as if bar comes, then it need to convert it as foo. So outbound communication session that will be established from the SSP to SI, it will be established through the foo credential. Now your SI know what is the foo and what directly need to have access to this bar user. I'm sorry, to foo user. So it will serve only that directories because foo user ID password is created in SI. Okay, so this is the story of your um, communication, FTP communication from external partner to DMG to core network and to SI and to SI FTP adapter. Okay, now let's quickly do the practical with this scenario. Okay, so we'll come here, we'll come on this screen, right? Okay, before we start the practical session, let's understand one more thing, and which is this guy. Okay, now we know we have to define FTP adapter. To define the FTP adapter, you need the net map. For the net map, you need the nodes, right? To define the net map overall, you need the policy configured, right? Now you can take an approach from top to bottom, right? You can also take an approach that we call bottom to up, right? Bottom to up. Bottom to up means first you define the policy, then you define the net map, and then you define the adapter, FTP adapter, right? Top, bottom to up, or you can take the approach from top to bottom, right? So whatever approach you like, you can follow. Okay. Now here, now here. So this is your SSP dashboard, right? This is the SSP dashboard. There you go. Okay. We have already defined our engine, right? You can see that. Now, I prefer bottom to top approach, where I will define policy, then net map, and then adapter. Okay. So I'm going to first define the policy. So to define the policy, you have to click on the actions, come to the new policy, okay, and then you define the FTP policy. Click on the FTP policy, you will see this screen. Write the name of your FTP policy. That's to FTP policy. Okay. Click on the advanced. here you can see the authentication configuration. Okay, how your certificate authentication will happen, how your user authentication will happen, and how is your uh, user mapping will work. Okay, so by default, or the default option is pass through, right? So whatever your client has provided the user ID password in the inbound session, same will be used for the outbound session, and it will be just passed to the SI. Okay, so I will leave the default, click on the save, right? Come on the next, we will define the net map, right? FTP net map. So click on the new net map and then click on the FTP net map. Okay, so here is your net map. So first you have to provide a name to your net map. Batch to FTP net map. Okay, here you have inbound nodes, here you have outbound nodes, right? I have already explained the theory and the story of inbound node and the story of outbound node, right? So first we will define the inbound node. I will click on the to create a new node in the net map, and in the inbound net map section, click new. Okay, so first to test this, okay, for to make everything clear to you, I will initiate a connection from from this system itself, right, through the FileZilla. Do you see? I have installed the FileZilla here. Okay, through this system. So what is the IP address of this system itself? Is 127.0.0.1, right? Oh, sorry, this is the node name. So local client. Okay, IP address. If I let it asterisk, then it means anyone can connect to this server, or this inbound node will be able to validate everybody. Okay, all the IP address, all your external partners. Next is policy. So it is asking you to select the policy. So policy is batch to FTP policy, the policy that we just now defined. Click on the security. So we are not, because we are not configuring FTPS, so we don't need to do anything right now. But we will see this. Okay, so don't need to worry. We will see this definitely in detail when we will do the FTPS configuration. Okay, click on the advanced. This is a login label. What is this login label? Very important. We will discuss that. Okay, so this is my inbound node. Come to the outbound node. Okay, now click on the new to create an outbound node. Now, what configuration will go here? I think I do not need to explain. You know it, right? SI server, SI FTP right, IP address and the port number. IP address. What is the IP address of my SI? So I have two virtual machines running in my system, and both virtual machines are you know XP operating systems. And you know that two virtual machines can be considered as two different systems, right? So I have to now see the IP address of machine where my SI is running, that I will configure in the outbound node, right? And I also need to know on which port my FTP server adapter is running. So to check that, I will go to the configuration. Okay. So this is my admin password. FTP sub adapter. Here is my FTP sub adapter. Okay, this FTP sub adapter is running on port 22. Okay, so my FTP sub adapter port is 22. You can see it here, and the IP address of this box is 192.168.1.154. So here it will be 192.168.1.154, right? 154, 154, 154, right? The port number is 22, right? I hope you get it. Here's my security, and here is the advanced. Okay, I will say debug and the destination server name. Okay, I'm not going to do anything here. We're going to discuss every single field in this page. Okay. So now I have inbound node, now I have outbound node, and now we're going to click on the save. My net map is ready. Next, I'm going to configure adapter. Okay. New adapter, and what type of adapter we are going to configure? We are going to configure FTP, reverse proxy. Okay, FTP adapter. Okay, listening port can be anything, whatever you like. Okay, so this port will be open on your SSP engine box. Remember that, where your SSP engine is installed. Select the net map that we just now created. Click your standard routing node. Okay, now this, what is this standard routing node? We will discuss this as well, right? Because there is a story. Okay, and if you remember, where we configure this node, we configure this node in the net map. Okay, so here we are configuring, or we are asking my FTP adapter that whatever connection come from the inbound node